My wife secretly sold my half of our $8 million company to her lover while I was recovering from surgery, forging my signature on documents that made her rich and left me with nothing. The board meeting I called 3 weeks later revealed that the sale contract she'd signed contained a clause that would destroy both their lives and give me back everything they'd stolen. But here's the part that will shock you. She wasn't just betraying our marriage. She'd been systematically stealing company funds for 2 years while planning to frame me for embezzlement. When I presented the forensic audit showing her theft, even her lawyer lover realized she'd been using him as a pawn in a scheme that would send them both to federal prison. My name is Jared Williams. I'm 39 years old, co-founder of Pacific Tech Solutions. And before I tell you how I turned my wife's corporate theft into her financial ruin, you need to understand what I discovered when I hired a forensic accountant to investigate unusual transactions during my medical leave. What he found made me realize my wife wasn't just stealing money. She was orchestrating an elaborate corporate takeover that involved forged documents, insider trading, and a conspiracy that would have made her wealthy while destroying my reputation and sending me to prison for crimes she committed. I co-founded Pacific Tech Solutions in 2018 with my business partner Marcus Chen, building the company from a small software consulting firm into one of the fastest-growing technology companies in the Pacific Northwest. Our company specializes in developing custom software solutions for healthcare systems, financial institutions, and government agencies throughout Washington, Oregon, and Northern California. My role as Chief Operating Officer involves managing client relationships, overseeing project development, and coordinating our team of software engineers and systems analysts. Marcus handles the technical architecture and product development as our Chief Technology Officer, while we share equal ownership and decision-making authority for all major business decisions. I met my wife Victoria at a technology conference in Seattle back in 2019, where she was working as a corporate attorney, specializing in intellectual property law and business contracts. Victoria seemed intelligent, ambitious, and knowledgeable about the legal complexities of technology companies. Exactly the kind of partner who could understand and support my entrepreneurial goals. We were married in 2020, and Victoria continued her legal practice while also providing informal legal advice for Pacific Tech Solutions as we navigated rapid growth and increasingly complex client contracts. Victoria had always been very interested in the business operations and financial performance of Pacific Tech Solutions, asking detailed questions about our revenue streams, profit margins, and expansion plans that seem to reflect genuine interest in supporting our company's success. I want to understand every aspect of your business, Victoria would say when I shared information about our financial performance and strategic planning. As your wife, I should be able to provide insight and support for the decisions that affect our future together. I was grateful for Victoria's interest in our company and her willingness to provide legal expertise that helped us avoid costly mistakes during our rapid growth phase. But about 18 months ago, I began noticing that Victoria seemed unusually focused on the specific legal and financial mechanisms that governed my partnership with Marcus and our respective ownership rights in Pacific Tech Solutions. Victoria would ask detailed questions about our partnership agreement, buy-sell provisions, and the procedures for transferring ownership interests if one partner became unable to participate in company management due to illness, disability, or other circumstances. I want to make sure you're protected if something unexpected happens, Victoria would explain when I questioned her interest in partnership dissolution procedures. Business partnerships can become complicated when personal circumstances change, and you should understand your legal rights and financial protection. But Victoria's questions focused specifically on scenarios involving my potential incapacitation or inability to fulfill my management responsibilities, rather than general partnership protection or mutual benefit arrangements. More concerning, Victoria had begun developing a close professional relationship with James Morrison, a corporate attorney who specialized in mergers and acquisitions for technology companies in the Seattle area. James has extensive experience with tech company valuations and acquisition strategies, Victoria told me when she began meeting with James regularly. He's helping me understand how Pacific Tech Solutions might position itself for future growth opportunities or potential acquisition offers. But Victoria's meetings with James occurred during evenings and weekends when business discussions would normally be inappropriate, and their communication seemed more personal than professional when I occasionally overheard their phone conversations. 8 months ago, I required emergency surgery for a herniated disc that had been causing severe back pain and mobility problems for several weeks. The surgery was successful, but my recovery required 6 weeks of limited activity and reduced involvement in day-to-day business operations. Victoria positioned herself as my primary caregiver and communication liaison with Pacific Tech Solutions during my recovery period, handling correspondence, scheduling decisions, and financial matters that normally required my direct attention. "I want to make sure the company continues running smoothly while you focus on healing," Victoria said, when she offered to manage business communications during my medical leave. "Marcus is handling the technical operations, and I can coordinate the administrative and legal issues that don't require your immediate involvement." I was grateful for Victoria's support during a difficult recovery period, especially since the pain medication I was taking made it difficult to concentrate on complex business decisions for extended periods. But during my recovery, I began receiving phone calls from clients and business partners who seemed confused about changes in our company policies and management structure that I had never approved or been informed about. We received documentation about new ownership arrangements at Pacific Tech Solutions. One of our largest clients told me during a check-in call, "The paperwork shows that Victoria Williams is now the majority owner and primary decision-maker for all client contracts and business development initiatives." This information was completely false and inconsistent with our actual partnership structure. But the client had received official-looking documents that appeared to confirm Victoria's claims about changed ownership and management authority. When I asked Victoria about the client's confusion regarding ownership changes, she claimed that she had been providing clarification about our management structure during my medical leave, but that some clients had misunderstood her explanations about temporary administrative responsibilities. "I've been handling routine communications while you recover," Victoria explained. "Some clients may have gotten confused about whether I have permanent authority versus temporary coordination responsibilities. But similar confusion about our ownership structure and Victoria's role in the company was reported by multiple clients, vendors, and business partners who had received documentation suggesting that significant changes had occurred in our company's management and ownership during my medical absence. 2 months ago, I hired Patricia Valdez, a forensic accountant who specializes in corporate fraud investigations, to analyze our company's financial records and determine whether any unauthorized transactions or changes had occurred during my medical leave. Patricia's investigation revealed that Victoria had been systematically stealing money from Pacific Tech Solutions for over 2 years while also creating false documentation that would make me appear responsible for the missing funds. Victoria had been using her access to our financial systems and legal documents to transfer company funds to accounts she controlled through shell companies and false consulting arrangements that appeared legitimate on superficial examination. But the forensic accounting analysis revealed that the supposed consulting services had never been provided, and the shell companies were entities that Victoria had created using false information and forged business registrations. Victoria had stolen over $1.2 million from Pacific Tech Solutions while creating documentary evidence that would make it appear I had authorized the transfers for personal use or unauthorized business expenses. But the most shocking discovery was that Victoria had been working with James Morrison to develop a plan for gaining complete control of Pacific Tech Solutions, while eliminating my ownership interest and partnership rights. During my medical leave, Victoria had forged my signature on documents that transferred my 50% ownership stake in the company to a shell entity controlled by James Morrison, effectively giving Victoria and James complete control over Pacific Tech Solutions, while leaving me with no legal claim to the business I had co-founded. The forged transfer documents included false medical certifications claiming that my surgery and recovery had resulted in permanent cognitive impairment that made me unable to fulfill my partnership responsibilities or make sound business decisions. Victoria and James had planned to present these forged documents to Marcus and our board of directors as evidence that I was no longer competent to serve as co-owner and chief operating officer, while positioning Victoria as my legal guardian and business representative. But the most elaborate aspect of their scheme involved plans to frame me for the financial theft that Victoria had been committing while building her false case for assuming control of the company. Patricia's investigation revealed that Victoria had been creating false evidence suggesting that I had been embezzling company funds to pay for gambling debts, drug purchases, and other illegal activities that would justify criminal charges as well as forfeiture of my ownership rights. Victoria and James had prepared a comprehensive package of false evidence that would make me appear to be a criminal and incompetent business partner who needed to be removed from the company for legal and financial protection of our employees and clients. Armed with comprehensive evidence of Victoria's theft, forgery, and conspiracy, I decided to allow her to proceed with her planned corporate takeover while preparing to expose her crimes at the moment when she thought she had achieved complete victory. 3 weeks ago, Victoria called a special board meeting for Pacific Tech Solutions, claiming that urgent legal and financial issues required immediate attention from company leadership and our primary investors. We need to address some serious problems that have emerged during Jared's medical leave, Victoria told Marcus and our board members during the meeting. There have been significant financial irregularities and concerns about Jared's capacity to continue fulfilling his partnership responsibilities. Victoria presented the forged documents showing my supposed transfer of ownership rights to James Morrison's shell company, along with false medical reports claiming that my surgery had resulted in permanent cognitive damage. Jared is no longer competent to serve as chief operating officer, Victoria announced to the shocked board members. His medical condition has deteriorated, and he's been engaging in financial misconduct that threatens the stability of our company. Victoria also presented the false evidence suggesting that I had been embezzling company funds, including forged bank statements and fabricated documentation of unauthorized transactions that she claimed proved my criminal behavior. For the protection of our employees and clients, we need to remove Jared from all management responsibilities and transfer his ownership interest to qualified leadership that can restore financial stability and legal compliance, Victoria continued as James Morrison nodded his agreement with her assessment. But I had been prepared for this moment, and had been recording the entire meeting while Victoria presented her false evidence and attempted to steal my company through fraud and forgery. Victoria, before the board makes any decisions based on your presentation, I announced as I entered the conference room, I think everyone should review the forensic accounting report that documents your theft of over $1.2 million from Pacific Tech Solutions. The room fell silent as I distributed copies of Patricia Valdez's investigation report, which detailed Victoria's systematic embezzlement and the false evidence she had created to frame me for her own crimes. This investigation shows that Victoria has been stealing company funds for 2 years while creating forged documents to make me appear responsible for her theft, I explained to the stunned board members. I also presented evidence showing that the ownership transfer documents were forgeries, and that the medical reports claiming my cognitive impairment were fabricated by healthcare professionals who had been bribed by Victoria and James. Victoria and James Morrison have been planning to steal Pacific Tech Solutions through an elaborate conspiracy involving forgery, embezzlement, and false medical documentation, I continued as the board members reviewed the comprehensive evidence of fraud. James Morrison immediately requested a private consultation with Victoria, and within minutes they were both consulting with their attorneys about potential criminal liability for the conspiracy that had just been exposed. The most damaging evidence, I announced to the board, is contained in the ownership transfer contract that Victoria forged with my signature. I opened the contract to a clause that Victoria and James had apparently overlooked during their careful planning of the corporate theft. Section 12.3 of our original partnership agreement states that any ownership transfer resulting from fraud, forgery, or criminal activity automatically triggers a penalty clause that requires the perpetrator to forfeit all assets and face treble damages for attempted theft. I read aloud to the board. Victoria's forged transfer documents have activated this penalty clause, which means she owes Pacific Tech Solutions over $3.6 million in damages, plus forfeiture of all assets she gained through her criminal conspiracy. The penalty clause had been included in our original partnership agreement as protection against exactly the kind of scheme that Victoria and James had attempted. But they had been so focused on the mechanics of their fraud that they had failed to research the legal consequences of their actions. Additionally, I continued, James Morrison's participation in this conspiracy has violated multiple professional conduct rules and criminal statutes that will result in disbarment and federal prosecution for his role in the attempted corporate theft. Victoria's elaborate plan had backfired completely. Instead of gaining control of Pacific Tech Solutions while framing me for embezzlement, she had created comprehensive evidence of her own criminal behavior while triggering contractual penalties that would bankrupt her and destroy James Morrison's legal career. Within days, Victoria was arrested and charged with embezzlement, forgery, conspiracy, and racketeering related to her attempt to steal Pacific Tech Solutions through fraud. James Morrison faced similar charges plus professional misconduct violations that resulted in immediate suspension of his law license. The criminal investigation revealed that Victoria and James had been involved in similar corporate theft schemes with other technology companies, using James's position as a mergers and acquisitions attorney to identify potential targets and develop sophisticated fraud strategies. Victoria ultimately pleaded guilty to multiple felonies to avoid trial and received a sentence of 12 years in federal prison plus restitution requirements that exceeded $4.2 million, including penalties and legal expenses. Pacific Tech Solutions recovered all stolen funds plus additional damages from the penalty clause, while Marcus and I retained complete control of our company and used the legal settlement to fund expansion into new markets. Our marriage was annulled immediately after Victoria's arrest, and our employees and clients expressed relief that the attempted corporate theft had been discovered before it could damage our company's reputation or operations. Sometimes the most satisfying revenge is simply building legal protections that turn people's own crimes against them. Victoria thought she could steal my company while framing me for her embezzlement, but she was actually triggering contractual penalties that would bankrupt her while providing comprehensive evidence of her criminal conspiracy. The people who attempt corporate theft should remember that well-written partnership agreements contain protection clauses, specifically designed to punish fraud, and some schemes are too ambitious to succeed when confronted with professional legal preparation. Victoria believed she could forge documents and steal millions while destroying my reputation and business, but she was actually creating the evidence that would send her to federal prison while making me wealthier than I had been before her attempted theft.